Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining in. We're just going to start top of the hour. I'll see you guys then. Hi, folks. Good evening, everyone. Wherever you are listening from, my name is Kalu Aja, and this is just a space podcast recording that we're doing today just to talk about the economy, the elections, and our role as, should we say, taxpayers, and of course, as Nigerians. So, just to give you a breakdown of what we're doing, we have an election coming up next year, and we've started a series to try to understand the economic policies of the three main candidates. That's Atiku Abubakar, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and Peter Obi. What we want to do essentially is to understand what these candidates are bringing to the table in terms of the economy and, of course, economic policies. What are they going to do for you? And we won't just focus on the economy in, at least on my own space, right? Just so we can break down most of the talk and sort of have a discussion around what we want to see for Nigeria, right? And for ourselves as Nigerians as well. Last week, we had the Atiku Abubakar presentation. And if you don't know, the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry has invited all three leading candidates to come and talk about the economy. So this is perfect because it's the same organization, same format, same questions. Come and tell us about your economic policy. So that way we can just listen in and we can hear policy and we can talk about it, right? That's what we want to do. Last week we talked about Atiku Abubakar's presentation. It's recorded, it's on the podcast. You could go read it and find out all about it. And this time, or this week, about Mr. Peter Obi, who was also at the presentation. I took notes down. I have about 6 points here that Peter Obi touched on: power, refining, debt, diversification, the ports, and of course, its 100-day plan. So remember, I'm extracting what is basically policy worthy, right? I'm listening to all he's saying and I'm saying, hey, these are the things I think we should talk about. So let me just go through them, perhaps give analysis, and then we'll just allow everyone to hop in if you want to speak, and then we can let you talk, right? Super. Let's go first of all to refining. This is the one I found very interesting. Peter Obi said petrol subsidies is organized crime. I'm quoting him here. He says 60% of the subsidy is corruption and that he will deal with it, right? And then this is where he gets into policy. We will promote local refining, that is private sector, and supply them crude oil. But this is the important point here, in naira, to refine for domestic consumption. So if I hear what Peter B is saying, we are going to promote local refinery that is driven by the private sector. So he's not into all this NNPC thing. It's more or less we're going to support Dangote's refinery and all other refineries that are out there that have a license to supply to refine crude oil. But we are going to pay them, or they're going to pay us in naira, not in dollars. This is important because I had seen a report by the Minister of Finance saying that Dangote was going to buy crude in naira, right? And there was a rumor that he was also going to pay for the crude just in naira. So Peter is saying essentially they're going to pay in naira and we're going to pay them in naira as well. Remember that Dangote is in an EPC. So he's exporting the PMS to Nigeria. And the issue was, would he pay in dollars or in naira? Now, Peter B is saying that under his administration, they're going to pay in naira. And he'll deal with insecurity and all that. So the policy thing there is that it's private refineries. It's in naira, no dollar back and forth. And he's going to essentially deal with the subsidy or the corruption in the subsidy regime. Let me unmute the mics. Let's talk about this guy. Let's talk about this one. Then we'll just go through the power, the debts, the refining step by step. So that way we can actually have a discussion around those main points. So let's talk about the refining part. If you have a comment or you want to say something, sure. I'm going to just allow you speak so we can then get the house going because it's going to be a house driven thing. My analysis of it, I think it's good. When we collect naira, that means Dangote pays in naira. They send to lose, right? The forex that would have come to Nigeria if Dangote had paid, right? If we had paid for Dangote's crude in dollars. So if we are paying naira and it's buying in naira, then we retain that transaction in naira. We're able to retain, as it were, our foreign reserves. Bata, what's up with you? Better. Did you have a comment on this? What's your take on this? Do you agree with Peter Obi? What's your take on it?
Kalu,
How are
can you
you
hear
doing?
me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm good. I'm good. I agree with him as far as whatever he's saying. No, sorry, not whatever he's saying. Sorry, as far as his method of encouraging local refineries is going to help and let's say curb this issue of overspending, because the money we are spending and importing of this fuel, it's too much.
Yes,
It's too
correct,
much.
correct.
And also, I don't know if you can remove the subsidy and put it on something better like electricity. At least that will be better for everybody and every Nigeria. So I think that's my take on it.
Yeah, and importantly, he's not saying he's going to remove the subsidy. What I'm hearing him say here is that we will remove the subsidy by fighting corruption, right? So he says we deal with the insecurity and we'll remove and deal with corruption and the inflation rate will drop. So what he's implying is that the bulk of those subsidy payments are corruption driven. So if you're able to knock down that corruption part of the subsidy claim, you drop it considerably, which would then at least allow fuel to be available, but available at least with some subsidy, right, to the economy.
Okay.
Boy, T,
I think
go
it
ahead.
was in so it was in another interview that he said he was going to remove subsidy, but he's not just going to remove it. If he's removing it, he's putting it somewhere else. He's using the money to do something else. He said
Yeah.
you don't just remove subsidy without giving Nigeria something else. You understand? Let's say we are going to stop paying for subsidy and invest the money into our healthcare system and all that. You understand? Maybe he didn't mention that in this commerce and industry chamber meeting,
Mhm.
but elsewhere he has said that if he will remove subsidy, but he won't remove it without putting it or investing the money somewhere else.
Okay, great point there. Let me get Kizito. Kizito, what's your take on this? Do you support it? It's all about corruption. With the corruption, the subsidy falls. What you should pay in naira. What's your take on it? Hey, Kizito, you're on the mic. All right, let me move to Boy TU. Boy TU, hi, how you doing? You can unmute and let me know what your thoughts on this.
Yeah, good evening.
How are you doing today?
I'm fine. I'm fine. I am. I think what I want to contribute is, I think I agree with the removal of subsidy, and also even since 2012, I had been a very keen supporter of removal of subsidy. You might look at my profile picture and be like, oh, I'm a young guy, but I just have this gift of curiosity ever since that makes me try to find out about things that make me understand that subsidy it's an organized crime.
Yeah.
So it doesn't help us anyway. But consider the issue of the private refineries paying in naira, and they pay us next week. I think it's a win-win for us because
Agree.
that way we are be able to like remove our demand for dollars, like us paying them in dollars or we pay trying to look for like now. Not imagine this kind of situation that we are in this country that there's no single dollar in any foreign account. It's really a messy situation. So I
Mm-hmm.
believe that if we can find a way to make people demand more for naira, I think naira will have more value because our over dependence on the dollar. If we want to buy this, we depend on dollars. If we want to buy that, we depend on the dollars. I think if we can make so okay, our crude oil, our petroleum that is or we are importing, we've removed the dollar demands on that. I think that there'll be more dollars for other sectors to circulate.
I
I
agree.
don't know. That's
I agree. And
that's
Peter Obi made the point that we should stop the dollarization of economy. So I heard him say that as well, that he wants to stop the dollarization. So everything's going to be naira based, reduce the demand for dollars. So the demand comes down a bit, then the prices can start to ameliorate. I like that a lot from you. Elon, what's your take on this, Elon? What's up?
Okay, Carlo, good evening, everyone, according to my time zone. So, the truth is, Peter Obi is actually one of the Nigerian politicians that is very, very anti-dollarization of the Nigerian system.
Mm-hmm.
If if I understand perfectly what he said here, it therefore means that Peter Obi is of the point of view that if you Peter Obi is of the point of view that if subsidy is done perfectly, we will not spend the amount of money we spend on subsidy.
That
Because
is,
the truth is, if you look at the liter of fuel they claim that Nigeria consume, it's not up to what they think. So if we are able to bring out the truth in this the liter of fuel that we consume as Nigerian, you will see that the amount of money we spend on subsidy, as a matter of fact, will drop. Then we can now focus on improving the value of naira in the Nigerian system. So I actually support the idea of making every merchant in Nigeria Nigerian currency. It will strengthen the Nigerian currency and make everybody understand the value of the currency. So I believe I support that notion 100%.
yeah, well said. And I think the point again is this that he's essentially going to the heart of the matter to say the subsidy is corruption driven, that the cost really should be reduced, first of all, by taking care of the corruption. Take that out, then you can then localize the expenditure. I like that a lot. Let me get Timmy. Timmy talks.
Um, okay. My own personal opinion is on the topic of subsidy would be to tread carefully because I still remember the 2012 ones very clear. Jonathan was trying to remove the subsidy also. Then we realized there's more to it than what has been explained. And even part of the Buhari campaign was also removing subsidy. I guess personally, I think there is more to this. According to what Peter Obi said, which is actually, I think, the right thing, which is why he's not saying he's taking out subsidy completely, is to take out the corruption involved. So I have a feeling he is also looking, there is more to this subsidy of a thing that the government is actually not telling us. So, which is why it's very difficult at the point to say you're taking this out and at the point where there is a subsidy. In the aspect of paying, of making deals in Naira, that is a very way to go, and it's actually very, very important. One of the reasons why the European Union are so balanced is because everyone trade within themselves with the same currency. I won't understand why we'll be trading with businesses in Nigeria and we have to pay them in dollars. So, which means for us to even deal with businesses in our own country, we still need to make demands for dollars, which doesn't make sense. So, working with Naira always we also give us advantage to be able to extend to other nations, but they also have to depend a lot on an area for them to also make some other deals with us. So that is what I think of the idea.
Yeah, well said. I mean, well said. Let me get Alexander in here. Alexander Ackman, what's up, sir?
Hi, Mr. Carlo. Good evening. Can you hear me, please?
Yes.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So, I was at the event and it was quite impressive, the points and to think the fact that most of what he said was offhand. You'll be sure that the gentleman knows what he's talking about. Talking about this issue of local refining and the subsidy removal, I think it's common knowledge. A lot of points have been raised, issues around the strengthening of the naira. It's one advantage you'll have. Of course, you will have improved supply, right? So the demand locally, we already have an idea of what the demand is locally. So there will be that comparative advantage in terms of the supply will be better, and you'll have issues around reduced cost of production since most of the most of the personnel needed will be local. There'll be issues of technology transfer, but we also have to pay attention to quality control, which I'll expect the upstream regulatory commission to pay attention to that. That will be very critical to ensure the quality of the products and all of that. And you definitely will have some to export to other sub-Saharan African countries. So definitely that will improve our local exports. And when you look at all of this, you discover that just in that sector alone, apart from the strengthening of the naira, you'll definitely have the advantage of strengthening the economy equally, improving the improving the employment rate, getting more people out of poverty, and it would generally help the economy. Now, when you now move to something like subsidy removal, I completely agree with Peter Obi that it's funny because how many people do we have in these countries? How many vehicles do we have plying the road, or maybe in manufacturing or what other sector? When you look at the inflation numbers, it's not looking better. When you look at the purchasing power parity of Nigerians, people have money. I did not buy 5 more cars to add to my fleet. I'm not sure of a lot of us who had, but rather people were selling more of their cars. People were trying to even reduce their cost of consumption and all of that, from diesel consumption in your generators to even in your vehicle. You have to really plan. So in all of it, you discover that the cost of consumption really has dropped. So where are we now getting these wonderful numbers? And that the Minister of Finance is even telling us that by next year we might exit the 6 trillion numbers. Who is accountable for this? There are technologies that we can use at the tank farms to maybe understand what our local consumption is. It's not far
Okay.
fetched. So I think generally Obi in this regard got the call. Thank you.
I think everyone has. I think the point is this, right? The subsidy has got to go. I believe that personally, and
It
I
ha-
think the
uh,
subsidy
uh,
has.
so Khalif, can I come in there? I'm sorry. Can
Yeah,
I come in there? Just briefly, subsidy will have to go, but maybe a bit staggered. As the first gentleman mentioned, the issue is it's a trust deficit
true,
across board.
true,
If you're taking out subsidy in petroleum, you can invest in education, you can invest in healthcare, so
true.
you reduce the burden on people. By the time we are looking at over 60% of your income is going into food, government could decide to do a subsidy on maybe grains or some other consumables, and this can generally help the populace. It will lead to accountability. Now, the problem is we are not complaining about removal of subsidy, but the problem is, can we trust where this money goes to?
I
Because
agree.
we have a lot of the stuff and nobody's accountable for it. Thank you. I'm sorry I interrupted. I had to just
No
bring
worries.
that point up.
Let's get Rotana. What's your take on this?
Okay, so I seem to have followed the queue on subsidy removal, and I agree with him. But first of all, we actually have to know the real how we have to
block the borders, apart from having the real numbers because of people are falsifying numbers, also block the borders so that we don't pay subsidy in Nigeria and it's being sold in Cameroon and other neighboring countries on higher price. That's one. Then two, we also need to put the right people at the right place. Yeah. Because with that, believe me, if we can take down up to 40% of what we are paying on now, then the issue will now be, should we subsidize refineries abroad, or should we subsidize other aspects in Nigeria? Say for instance, use the money that is in subsidy to put in healthcare and create fund for people to open hospitals. Sure. Not public hospitals, but private, and subsidize that through insurance policies. Also look at the area of education, where for me, the problem with ASU, if you can scrap public universities and privatize it and move that money that we are spending in subsidy into giving scholarships to every Nigerian student, every Nigerian citizen that is going to public university. In so doing, you are not only taking the money in dollars, you are now spending it in naira in other sectors that people can, also move the amount they are spending in that sector into providing petroleum. So indirectly, you have also subsidized petroleum, because what you have done is that you've channeled the money people are spending in energy into education and healthcare. So instead of we spending such amount, and no, most rich people are the ones that can afford good healthcare, but the poor.
I hear you, sir, and I think it's perfectly fine. Like that point, it cannot be overstated, like you said, sir. It's a trust deficit, like we've heard, and you want to basically take those funds as education. I think we are on point on that and agree. Obedience, Dr. Ravik. How are you, sir?
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Good evening, everybody. I've actually followed P2B's policies and his what he averred as regarding the subsidy removal. There are two major points of notes that we must agree with. Number one, should Nigeria, a country of about 60 fuel, Nigeria should have no business importing a refined product where we bring out the raw material from here. So Nigeria, and he also talked about dollarization of the economy, which is what is killing our economy today. The people that actually need the dollar cannot access the dollar. And we are talking about fuel subsidy. Who and who are the people behind this subsidy? A lot of people have spoken about this. I'm fine with what the gross deficit, where the money is going. Yes, Obi consistently has said it's going to be a systematic application. It's not just going to be a one-off, one-off application, taking off the subsidy already, because entirely the whole Nigeria with fuel will go up as far as much as maybe 400, 500 naira, and that will become a crack in his leadership. So I also know he has great people around him, and the people like you, come in to advise him too in any way you can. You understand the economy. You have actually been doing a very great job here. So we expect people like you, Carlo Aja, to be in his government to also advise him. So what I am saying here is a welcome idea. Number one, Nigeria should be able to invest more in our.
I think the point about the subsidy is that it's corruption based.
Yes, corruption based. Yeah.
And if we reduce the corruption by 60%, that subsidy now looks a bit manageable. If you are able to reduce that corruption, I like that part is taken. All right, guys, let me on, because I have about 6 topics here that need to be spoken. We've just touched on. Let me go to another topic that I think is very, very important that he spoke on, just to give us some clarity. He spoke about power, and he is, of course, worried about power. And he said the problem with power is that the federal government privatized generation and distribution, but left power transmission untouched. So he says what he's going to do is he's going to liberalize the transmission of power in Nigeria. He's going to support the existing companies with dedicated gas supply, which is one of their problems. So he says generation, transmission, distribution will be properly aligned. We will ensure certainty of policy and the regulatory environment, and we will deal with taxes. But let me tell you what really impressed me about this talk about power, because everything he has said here, everyone can say it. He said, right, we are going to ensure that renewable energy is embedded in our power process. When I read that, I was like, why is Peter B talking about renewable power? Then I heard the news from the European International Bank. The EIB is saying going forward that they will not fund any gas project in Africa. They were talking specifically to Africans. They were saying many African countries and many third world countries are going from coal. That the Africans are thinking that that is renewable in quotes, that they will not fund coal to gas unless the African countries can include renewables into that energy mix. So this now makes sense to me now because I saw this before the EIB guy spoke. That maybe someone in the P2B's camp had seen or had an inkling or had gotten the policy of the European International Bank and then included renewables, embedded it into our process. So what this means is then the Nigerian energy transition plan that we're going to have will have renewables in it, which would then allow Nigeria to access that foreign capital to then diversify. The energy sector itself has to be diversified. So solar, wind, and all that, we have diversified that mix. So I was very impressed that they did it. Someone did his homework and inserted it here. So guys, let's also take your thoughts on this. What's our side? If you still want to talk about subsidy, you're free, but I've introduced the power side to it. Niger Badger, what's up, man?
Yes, good evening, Kalu. It's a pleasure and honor getting to speak in the midst of intellectuals here.
You're welcome, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Okay, so I would like to go back a little as regards the issue of subsidy, which has been a sort of a cankerworm in our economy as it stands. Now, what we need to know about subsidy has become over bloated of recent. So this should be circa like from 2019 up till now. The reason why it has been over bloated is due to three reasons majorly. Now, the first is from the import side. The second is on the side of the porosity in our border. The porosity in our border. And the third is our foreign exchange. Now, let me break it down. All this is tied, all these are tied to the lack of political will on the side of the government to want to do anything about it. Hello? Am I still on?
Go ahead.
Now, the lack of political will is the reason why these three issues have germinated to the cancer we have in the subsidy scam in Nigeria at the moment. Now, because I've had dealings in oil and gas briefly, and I can tell you as an insider from the little experience I've had, these importers, they are the big boys in Nigeria. The first thing they do, the most things they do is that they do not, they get paid more for less quantity that is being imported into the country. That is number one.
How is that
They
possible?
declare,
What do you mean
they
by
declare,
less?
they declare fictitious quantities. They can say they supplied 100 liters, but in reality, the 100 liters might be just like 50 liters, and they get paid for 100 liters. That is number one issue that leads to the bloated
Okay.
something of.
Got lots of guys that want to speak, so I try to get them through. Did you mind just
Okay. Okay. Then the number two is the porous borders. Now, I read an article that said 5 million naira is paid at the border where they smuggle petroleum products through to Cameroon and the Benin Republic. So this contributed to the high level of consumption the federal government they are presuming we consume in Nigeria. Now, all this is all tied to political will. The lack of political will on the side of the government is the main reason why these things cannot be policed. I'm hoping by next year when Peter Obi comes in, the first thing he needs to do is tighten up the borders, number one, then try and make sure accountability is a thing when it comes to the import of these petroleum products. Because truth be told, we cannot just remove the subsidy at a go. It will affect the common man on the streets based on what is happening with diesel and kerosene.
So I hear you. So also think that the main thing that people needs to do, like he said, is if you take shell in the prices, the reason why the Nigerian petrol is smuggled is because it's cheaper in Nigeria. So if you pay the subsidy in Nigeria, the fuel is cheaper. So I can smuggle to Cameroon because it's cheaper in Nigeria. If you take away subsidy, or if you pay the subsidy at the ports, at the pumps, not the port, the pumps, filling pumps in Nigeria, there is no price differential. So there will be no smuggling. Nobody will smuggle petrol from Nigeria if it's the same price in Cameroons or in Togo. That's what we need to focus on. And that's what he's talking about. That's why I like to be talking about the corruption. It is corruption subsidy, not demand-driven subsidy. So I wanted to just leave focus on that, and I think we'll get out of it. Hey, Bruno, what's up, man? Modrock 89. What's up, sir?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I
Hey.
think I would like to speak on three things like paying the refiners in Naira or getting the pay in Naira. I think it will depend if the investors are Nigerians or they are foreigners. I don't know.
It's Dangote.
Hello.
It's Dangote. He's the only one with the refinery. So he's talking about that guy. That's what he's talking about. Dangote.
Yeah, okay, Dangote. I don't think Dangote will not be the only person that will be refining locally. I think if the system is more opened up, other people might want to invest in refining in Nigeria. Hello. Hello.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, I get it me clearly. People might want to invest like foreigners, not Nigerians. How will he be able to mitigate the challenges of paying them in our local currency without scaring them away? Considering how they've lost confidence in our system. I think that's one. So I think you need to convince the investors that even when you are paid in naira, you can still go home with profit. Because I don't know how they intend to do
Let me
it.
explain that point, Bruno, if you don't mind, right? His point is that he wants to local mining. That's what he's saying. So this point of paying in naira, he's saying if you put a refinery in Nigeria, we will pay you in naira. He's not. You can import your own petrol, but to get the subsidy, that's what he's saying. Local refining, and there are about 27 licenses. Refinery, Imo, the refinery in Delta, and of course, there's a Dangote refinery. So those guys will pay for naira to buy crude, and will also pay them naira to buy their PMS.
Okay, that's better. Then, in the issue of subsidy, fuel subsidy, removing the first subsidy is a good idea so that we can have more money to spend in other critical areas like education and health. But also, I'm a transporter. Like I'm into haulage and logistics. I have trucks. I move goods for people. There is this issue we are not talking about. Diesel cost. Diesel cost has skyrocketed over like 800% increase. If I say, because we were buying full liter 180, now we are buying for 820 to 850 naira per liter. Nigerians are more concerned about fuel subsidy. Nobody is talking about diesel subsidy. I think what the government needs to do is to reduce the subsidy or take away even 50% of the subsidy they are paying for fuel and paying diesel. It will help in reducing the cost of this fast-moving consumer goods that will haul for people, because the cost of transporting them has increased 100%. So it's affecting every day.
Bruno, I'm so sorry. Your audio is there's lots of background. I'm so sorry. Let me get Jay. Jay, hop in here. What's happening, Jay?
Hey, Carlo, good evening.
Good evening to you. Yeah.
I think the topic of subsidy has been properly explained, and I think everybody has a grasp of it. So I just wanted to contribute a little bit on the power sector,
Yeah.
which is something I'm very passionate about.
Mhm.
Um, Again, I have to listen to the P2B's presentation on LCC or LCI. However, power is something that I followed closely because also I work in an engineering consulting sector, so I know a little bit about it. I think one of the places he could move the money for subsidy into will be the power generation, and then perhaps leave some other set of people, leave the states to manage the transmission. The reason why I say that is that is very local. It's about usage of transmitting the power, the generated power through the lines within a particular region. So I think it is better managed by the state with their investors. So I think P2B needs to work properly with the Senate. I don't know. I don't think he has the unilateral power to allow transmission to be 100% state-based. And this is the reason. As soon as you make it state-based, some people will now say, oh, he has come again to make a regional government, or he has come to favor a particular region. Because some states, as you know it in Nigeria, are very lazy. They
So,
don't want to do anything by themselves.
Jay,
Yeah,
just to follow what you're saying. So you are saying that what we have right now is a national grid. So when I
yes,
generate power in say in Delta, that power goes across Nigeria on the national.
exactly.
So what you're saying,
Exactly.
we should make it either a regional or state grid.
Yes, let's make it regional or state, because Peter B said something in one of his presentations, but not this particular one of his either him or one of these presentations said something. Why do we need to not have light in, let's use a northern state, Sokoto, just because something happened in, let's use an eastern state in Abia State?
Mm,
There's something unfair about that system. There is something, competition is the only thing that drives an economy.
mm,
If a state A finds out that state B is doing well in their power, all the citizens need to do is start murmuring, and the state governor, your murmuring amounts to nothing, because your state governor tells you he doesn't even have a clue about how power is transmitted. Neither
that,
does he have a clue who generates what. But
that,
if he finds out that, I mean, all the states don't need to have a generation company, but they can all have transmitting. They can be responsible for their transmitting, but not generating, because all states might not have the ability to generate in a cost-effective manner, because they don't have enough sunlight to generate through solar, or they don't have enough wind to generate through wind, or they don't have enough gas to generate through gas. Therefore, 3-4 states can come together, join a PPA, and fund a power plant in a state where the competitive advantage exists. However, transmission is a completely different thing. Transmission is the ability to bring the power down to the direct consumers who need it. And this is where we are having the biggest problem. One of them is the fact that there are no serious laws that prosecute people who destroy transmission lines, right? So federal government takes all the energy, they produce and distribute all the transmission line, and then one person goes down, cuts them, and resells it. And there are no laws within this power of the state to hold such a person accountable to either replace it or to sentence or prosecute. So
that.
if the state is spending that kind of money, they will not let somebody wake up, use a ladder, climb up, and start to cut transmission
So,
line and resell the wires.
so
So
good.
there are serious gaps in the value chain of the
Yeah,
power sector that is preventing us from having, I think, from what you're saying, if P2B is going in this direction, and I'm hoping, learned people like you can find a way. I have a document on it that I'm also writing, and I'm hoping that I can find time to share some of these
yeah.
ideas with him in any
And
case. I mean, these are the direction we should be
Jay, let
heading when it
add,
comes to power. Yeah,
you can understand. He's saying that the government's role is to provide sovereign guarantees. So he's
exactly.
even saying that
Yeah,
the government will go borrow, but the government will say if the state goes to borrow. So if I'm in a state that I can't generate, but the power
yeah.
pass through my place, he's saying that I can. The state, the federal will give you a sovereign guarantee to get a loan to expand that grid and then earn money from the grid. That's what you're saying.
Yes, and also there must be some level of partnership between states in any case. This is also one area they need to think about. I completely understand the government guarantee, the sovereign guarantee, but there also has to be a collaborative partnership between neighboring states to say, hey, we can actually come together and get this. And we pass joint uniform laws guiding the two states, which will be, one of them will be uniform pricing. Right? If the two, uniform pricing across board. That way, one state will not say, "Oh, I'm bearing the burden." Right? Uniform pricing, uniform laws on prosecution, on delay in payment, and things like that. So these are the angle I think we should be headed, and I think P2B is already on the right track. But of course, he wouldn't know everything in any case. He's not supposed to be some kind of a messiah that knows everything. So it would be nice then for people close to him or people who have access to him to then find, spaces like this, get this kind of information, and then condense it in readiness for deployment. Because some of these governors, let's also be honest, some of them have no clue. P2B is actually quite advanced in some of this knowledge. So this is now where the driving capacity comes. When he visits a state, the emphasis should be, now I'm in your state, what is your plan for power? And this is what we are going to provide you, and I need you to get it done. This is the direction he should be. And then I really do wish him all the best, to be
Makes
honest.
sense.
Thank you, guys.
Clarity and the technical side of the argument. Let me get Casey in here. Casey, how are you doing?
I'm fine. Good evening, Mr. Carlo. Good evening, everybody.
What's up, man?
Yeah, I think I've heard contributions from different people, and from what you've said, and then from what P2B is position on the lingering issues from power to subsidy. I believe in power. For me, I would say that what Nigeria needs is Nigeria needs to, we need we need to create a market environment, an enabling environment for any business to thrive. So Nigeria needs to be run like a business. So if Nigeria is run like a business, we shouldn't be talking about subsidy because it shouldn't exist in the first place. We should allow market forces to act. So when we have a market situation, a market economy, we should create an environment where a real market economy can function. So when we have that situation, things will work. Things will work. The whole thing. First of all, it might be chaotic because prices will increase, but then order will come from the chaos. So that's kind of saying that we need that chaos order. So allow the market to determine the price. Remove subsidy. Subsidy shouldn't be there in the first place. Then when it comes to,
I like the point you're making about the market. The market will clean up the chaos. I like that a lot. Yeah, please continue.
Yeah, because Nigeria is more of a socialist country than capitalist. So that's why we are still talking about Nigeria is like a slim man, a fat man. So what happens to the slim man? The slim man breaks down and die. We have over 200 million people, and you are paying subsidy for what? For what?
Interesting. Casey, this is a good place for me to jump into debt. Let me talk about what P2B has talked about debt. We talked about power and refining. Let's go to debt. What he's talking about debt, right? P2B says there is nothing wrong in borrowing. The difference is you borrow for consumption and you have a problem. If you borrow investment, your economy would grow. The reason why things are not working here, that's Nigeria, is that we are borrowing for consumption. Then he goes on to say, under my watch, we will borrow for investments. We will not borrow for consumption. We will cut the cost of governance, remove fiscal recklessness, and we will not borrow as much as we have borrowed today. Good points there. The policy I'm getting from him is that he says he will not borrow for consumption. If you look at the debt report every year, if you go to the latest one, you will see all the debt Nigeria has and the purpose for the debt. I looked at the current debt, about 40% goes to budget support. I believe that's a pseudonym for the recurrent part of funding the budget. Some go to railways. I think railways is about 6% or so, the second largest component of our borrowing. So what P2B is saying is that we're not going to borrow for consumption. If that happen right now as we speak, half year 2022, Nigeria's revenues cannot pay servicing right now as we speak. So this is not just a political speech; it's a reality that we cannot borrow for consumption. So let me get Prince K in here. Prince K, you heard me talk about debt, power, refining. Do you have any comments real quick? Prince K. Thank you, Casey. Prince K.
Yeah.
I'm not hearing from Prince K.
Can I comment on the debt?
Real quick, sir.
Okay. When he says we borrow for consumption, I think he's correct. So, for example, it is quite unfortunate that the EU, they are giving us conditions for them to fund our gas projects, our oil projects. In Nigeria, we have a lot of assets that is not producing. So, if we borrow, let's say all the money we borrowed, if we had used it in improving our oil production, by now, with the situation in Europe, we would have been cashing out. But we borrowed and we use it to do funny projects. Some of them are looted. So, we cannot even, there is no way of, repaying this debt. So if we borrow money, even if we borrow money to go into oil production, believe me, we are going to make more money. We are going to make money from it. So when borrowing is not bad, but we should borrow to produce. We should borrow even if it is oil and gas. Let us put money into the one that we have been doing, that we are sure that we are making money from. Let us go and put money there and make more money.
And again, again, this concept of the sovereign guarantees is very, very important. That although it's a contingent liability, it's not the government borrowing. So you are going to borrow and pay that debt yourself. But if you fail, the government can come in and pay. So I also think that is also good. Something that we can do. Stephen, let me get Stephen in here. Stephen, go ahead. Stephen, can you hear me?
Sorry, can I ask, is there a queue? I'm just wondering.
I'm just the names as they come in. Yeah. Who is speaking?
Okay. Can you hear me, Carlo?
Stephen, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, Carlo. Good evening, everybody. So, what I just want to say, a lot of people have spoken about it already, so I'll just be quick. Nigeria has no business with subsidy in the first place because the country is blessed with crude oil.
Yeah.
So, corruption gave birth to where we are today. That will now require, we need to import fuel. And as a result of that, we have to solve it. So everything about the subsidy from its inception is riddled with corruption. Yeah. So I'm not an expert in economics, but simple logic will tell you that if you can just take away that whole system, it will be better for the country. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. Let me get Bafa. Beta, is that you? Your hand has been up for a while. Anselm Solomon, you have the floor, sir. Go ahead. Going once. Anselm going twice. Let me get Ro Mohammed Jobe. Ro, where are you calling from? Ro Mohammed, you want to unmute?
Hello.
Sorry, guys. Let me go ahead. Bafa, you go ahead and speak. Bafa, you're on the. Go ahead, Better. Go ahead. Unmute and speak, sir. Your hand is up. Unmute and speak. Anselm, unmute and speak, or I'll move on. Okay, let's go to Blue Future. Hi, Blue Future. How you doing?
Yeah. Hi. Can you hear me?
I can hear you very well. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. I'm so happy. I thought I would never get to meet today. All right, okay. So yeah, I mean, we cannot really run away from this subsidy issue because I mean it looks like one of the most important issues in our lives today in the country. I mean, it's the reason why the aviation sector is almost grounded.
Yeah.
Reason why businesses can't run, everybody just going crazy. And I tell you what, everybody saying that we need to remove subsidy now as an immediate action. They are either not, not, well informed, or they don't know what the implications can be. We'll mess everything up if we try. See, there are so many things we can do. We must do rather before we take away subsidy, because all of this take out subsidy. It's a lazy way out.
Let me pause it. Let me pause it there. So if you are president today, the next day, do you take out subsidy, or you do the things first and take it out, or do you?
I'll do the things first, and that's what I'm trying to say. So the first thing I'll do is, first of all, to take out the incompetence in our crude production sector. Let us meet our OPEC quota first. You know, it's like somebody gives you, chance to sell 20,000 units of a product, and because of inefficiency, you're only able to sell 5,000, and then you are complaining. So first thing first, let us meet our OPEC quota, right? Now, after that, we now need to look at, because you see, there's no lazy way out of subsidy. Even if you refine locally and you sell crude in Naira, like Peter Obi said, if you don't protect your borders, arbitrage will still happen. You know, I mean, economics in the room understand what I'm saying. When people can buy low and sell high, they will always look for the opportunity, even if you are going to kill them. So the first thing is, let's meet our OPEC quota. The next thing is to look at how to make how is our refined products getting out to Cameroon and all these places? It's a major project. There's no lazy way out. We need to sit down and look at it and do the best that is humanly possible to either take it out completely or reduce it to, a bearable minimum.
Okay, but the point is that if we're doing all this and waiting to increase our output, you are still going to pay subsidy every month. So you earn money, then all your income goes to pay subsidy. I think that's the point.
Yeah, I'm going there. So now, as a matter of fact, you see, I would expect Peter Obi and his team to know that they don't have the luxury of time. By the time, once it becomes clearer that he's going to be the president of Nigeria, he needs to look for whoever is going to work on the critical areas, security, the energy sector. It's a major, so you won't have any time. So I'm looking at starting from now. Somebody mentioned the fact that our subsidy figure is a lie, and it is a very big lie. So the truth of the matter is that more than 50% of what we call subsidy today is going into the hands of rich Nigerians.
I agree.
Say again?
I'm just saying really that, right? I think if you come into office today, there's already a bill.
Yeah.
It's going to take over in February, right? Let's say it takes over in February. The budget in February, right? He has a bill of 4 trillion. He has to.
Yes.
So that's why he's saying corruption first.
Yeah. And I agree. And I agree with you completely. So if we need to borrow for, to stabilize.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a good program, if you have a good program that you're confident about, I mean, this is the reason why people lend money. So if you are confident, you have a solid program, and you have, an existential threat right now, you can borrow to stabilize. So whatever bill that there is to pay, it can be sorted out in the meantime. We all know that subsidy is corruption. So we cannot, because some corrupt Nigerians are ripping us off, allow all the rest of Nigerians to suffer. Do people understand how much we are going to be exposed to? Minimum wage has not been increased.
I hear you, Blue.
There are so many jobless. Sorry, go ahead.
I hear you, and we're going to have to move on, right? But the point is this, right? Either way, we're losing. If you pay subsidy, we're losing. If you don't pay subsidy, we're losing. Subsidy is a tax. It's not it's a tax on inefficiency. So we really have to take care of it. It's not a subsidy. They use subsidy as if they are paying. They're actually taking from us. So if you take away subsidy, you are giving Nigerians a tax break, because then you are removing that inefficiency Nigerians are paying for.
And I'm not opposed, taking it away, but I'm just saying that we need to do some things before taking it away. Even if we have to borrow money to survive for that period before it's appropriate. These people are lazy. Look, let me give you an example. Nobody knows the number that we consume on a daily basis.
Let me get Miri Ilo. How you doing? Go ahead.
Hi, Carlo. Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome, sir.
I appreciate the topic and the past speakers and everything everyone has been
They're
saying.
being
Everyone is correct. But like the question you asked the last speaker, Jay, if you take over now, what would you do? Jay is right in the sense of meeting your quota. But for me, I think what B2B should do is to nip the bud stop the corruption right away. First of all, ascertain what is being used in Nigeria and then remove subsidy immediately. But you have to have a bond with the Nigerian people in the sense that you have to explain what you're going to use this money for. Knowing P2B and seeing what he did in Anambra State, he's not going to focus on one sector. Nigeria needs security, Nigeria needs health, Nigeria needs education. If you can, and also power, if you can simultaneously start developing these sectors, these critical sectors, which is what he said, that if he removes subsidy, he's going to invest the money in the most critical sectors. Nigerians, within the shortest possible time, will start feeling the absorbers of these things from the economy, and they will start trusting the government once again.
I agree.
You need to be bold and take a bold step. This is not time to wear kid gloves.
This is the
Get
thing.
in there,
This is the thing.
stop subsidy immediately.
I
There's no waste of time. If we're going to suffer, we'll suffer. It's better to suffer for 30 days than extend the day of suffering.
I agree with you. Let me just
so long as Nigerians start feeling the effects from education, security, investing in the youth, like you said, providing soft loans for small-scale entrepreneurs, and simultaneously develop these all sectors, critical sectors of the economy, everything will be over. It will be a game changer for him. So there's no point to come and be playing games. We don't have that time. Because even, like you said, in the power sector, the European Unions and all these Western banks that are going to fund helping to develop the economy, they already started putting conditions, which you don't blame them, because if you're going to go borrow money from someone, he's going to give you condition. And if you don't meet the condition, they'll take their money elsewhere. So he needs to show seriousness. Once the Western world and the World Banks and all these institutions see commitment coming from, just like what happened in Zambia, see commitment coming from the leader, everybody will come back in and invest in Nigeria.
I agree.
So that's what I have to say for now. Thank you for the opportunity.
Let me say this about Peter Obi. Let's assume Peter Obi wins in February and then he's sworn in January. From the day he wins, the expectation on him is going to be more than any other candidate in Nigeria's history. To whom much has been given, much will be expected. He cannot come and say he wants to do review or he wants to do analysis. People expect that the first week he is in office, there will be a change. And I'm saying this because I know I know someone here listening that's from Peter Obi's camp. The expectation that is from Peter Obi is that he will come in, and not the first day. Let's give him the first day to rest, but the first week, there has got to be noticeable and a great change in the economy of Nigeria. There's so much. Peter Obi is now on social media, the leading candidate. I saw the Google Analytics. You could see the trend map from when he 3 weeks ago till today. People are putting their hopes on him. He cannot come and say, give me 2 months, give me 1 month. I'm just saying what I'm hearing from people. Let me get back a real guru, Chinedu Ibe. How you doing? Go ahead, sir. I'm going to tell everyone's going to speak. No worries. Everyone will speak, guys. No, don't worry about that.
Yeah, good evening, Kalu.
How you doing?
I'm good, and you?
I'm very, very well, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll go straight to the point. The point is this. Removal of subsidy is overdue in Nigeria. We can no longer delay it.
Yeah,
Let's put it this way. It's very important. If we are spending 4 trillion monthly or 3 trillion monthly, what I expect P2B to do is, okay, we are removing this. We don't say let's wait. Let's remove this. Put this money in soft loan for people who want to build refining companies, refineries. And if you do this problem will be solved in 6 months. This is a matter of demand and supply. If we increase the supply, the availability, because even if you delay the removal of subsidy, people will still have to bail out of Nigeria to Cameroon. And one thing about this, it's easy to say get people who are trusted and all that. But even if you get a trusted person as the Controller General of Custom, those guys on the field, you can't vouch for them. They will continue to collect peanuts and allow these people to sabotage the country. So what I expect him to do, the first week, just tell Nigerians, this thing he's beating around the bush about removing subsidy or not, make it clear. This is what we want to do. The money that is used for subsidy, we will move it into providing soft loans for people who would want to come and build refineries. Short term, smaller refineries. Before you know it, in 6 months, we can refine to capacity. That is when we go back and start talking about um, OPEC quotas and the rest of it. But the main thing is to stop paying this money, because they pay it. We don't have it. You have to
No,
go and borrow
you're
and pay.
And Chineke, just to make the point clear to folks, right? The way subsidy is paid is simple. Every month we meet at FARC, and this NNPC is supposed to fund FARC. So every month NNPC will say we have zero money for FARC because we have paid subsidy. So if you get into office and you are paying subsidy, that means you have no money for anything else. If you stop the subsidy today, you have money. So you choose. You're going to have to choose, will I take this money and do an immediate performance in the lives of people? I was alive in Nigeria during Petroleum Trust Fund. Abacha took
Yeah,
a subsidy and created Petroleum Trust Fund. And one thing that made it work, people saw the effect. No matter, I'm not praising Abacha, but we saw the
exactly.
effect. Peter Obi has
And
not
again,
something like
on
that.
the issue of
Ah,
power, I'm very glad about the lady that analyzed the transmission process.
yeah,
That.
she's very good. Yeah.
But there was a time some of these distribution companies said something about the transmission companies, that they dump power where you don't want it. Maybe you order something from somebody, from Jumia or forward, somebody that will deliver to you, and you ask the person, I want you to bring this thing to my flat. The person drops it at your gate. It makes it difficult to get somebody else who picks it too. So I think if we can also privatize along the line, a company can generate, transmit, and distribute. I think it will make it better. Thank you.
Yeah, he has said the whole chain will be privatized. That's what he said. With government, will simply just do regulations and sovereign guarantees, but the entire generation will be properly aligned. So, guys, if I drop you, just so I can add someone else, right? If I drop you, just so I can add someone else, right? Just so you know, I'm not dropping you from
All
speaking.
right, thanks.
So let's have Edgar. Is that Edgar? Edgar Felix one. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Kano. Good evening, everybody.
How you doing, sir?
I'm fine, sir. I'm a big fan of yours.
Thank you.
Concerning this, I think everybody knows this. Subsidy is a scam in Nigeria, and if anybody is saying otherwise, the person is not telling the truth. And is when that's the major issue. And if a serious government, if is concerned, like if Peter Obi should get in power, it shouldn't take him more than 3 months to remove the fuel subsidy. And if he make that commitment, most of the reason why private companies are not interested in setting up refinery in Nigeria is because of the fuel subsidy. If you remove fuel subsidy today, I believe that a lot of investors will be encouraged to come and invest in Nigerian refinery company to come and set up a refinery. So refineries should not the first of this should not exceed 3 months. Like if a new president should take over. So once he makes that commitment and encourage other investors to come into that sector, I think it will go a long way. Just making sure that there is a available fund to do other things. That's my own submission. Thank you so much.
Makes point. Prince K, do you want to say anything, sir? Prince K? All right, guys. Let me just quickly reset the room. We're talking about Peter Obi's presentation to the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
I said yes.
Okay,
Good
please
evening.
go ahead, sir. You have the floor.
Okay, good evening, all. First, let me thank you for what you're doing. Three areas I will quickly want to talk about, which everybody has actually addressed. The lady who talked about energy sector, fantastic. Yes, here's my position on that. I think one of the first things that Peter B needs to do is government needs to do, alongside with the National Assembly, is to see that we have distributed energy generation and distribution. What it simply means, if you divide Nigeria, we have 74 local governments. If you put that to 50,000 megawatts of power, we'll be able to have each local government generating 65 megawatts of power, which means some states will just need only about 1,000 or less 1,000 energy needs. Now, we cannot rule out the fact that our transmission line is also our national security needs. And so we can't completely throw that out, and so let's, give that out to all the states. We need to maintain a national security line, which is a transmission line. So what it simply means that every state generate what they need, excess transfer to the national grid for the national, to secure that for everybody. Should there be any power outage, any natural disaster that will be required for us to be able to do that. Now, once we do distributed energy generation, what it simply means is that Borno State, for instance, will be generating energy with solar as much as they need in that environment, which they'll combine with some pico, hydros, some mini hydros to combine with that. The people from the south, across the river area, we have the, wind, we have the gas, we have thermal. Multiplicity of energy generation will be taking place among different states. When you go to Jos, you'll find out that you have more than 3 trillion tons of coal, not even an ounce used for energy generation. I mean, you can imagine what that means. If we begin to look at the current modernized turbines that emit less carbon, we'll be able to generate energy within those belts that they need within that zone without necessarily transporting what we are doing currently, like she mentioned, which is part of what we have as a challenge. You generate energy from, from AFAM, you transport it to Kainji before it's distributed to the nation. Before then, from your transmission line, you have lost so much. You have lost about 25-35%, depending on how that is done. So we need to address that based on distributed energy generation and also focus on, storage and renewables so that we can combine all of this faceted energy generation needs. Then if you travel from Abuja to Kaduna, along the road, you see people drying their grains. Now we can develop dryers, solar dryers for them. We should cut them off from national grid needs and also improve on their value chain, in the agricultural value chain. So we need to focus on that. You need to focus on that to see that every area has some form of support system. The current government working on are doing a few things in terms of generation and distribution, but because not effectively done, there's a lot of loopholes, money that pass through that window that need to be taken care of so that it can be properly be able to have the power that they need. On security, I think once we have our energy needs right, it would basically take care of security to some degree, because once locations are properly lit up, I've actually been involved in some advocacy where we're encouraging crime control through environmental design. So neighbors need to be able to have the right lighting system within the environment. Now, how do you get lighting with that environment? Today, solar can help you give you light for a period during in the night. In the night time, at least it was 6 to 8 hours or 8 to 12 hours, depending on the type of solar solutions that they've been utilized. So we can see that once we have the energy sector right, we'll be able to handle security to some form. So what you can also do in that area is to start a review, of what is currently existing and start a new recruitment policy. That in doing so, you also need to begin to look at the welfare system. Glad he mentioned that. Because the remuneration today in Nigeria is one of the poorest in the world across the globe. You can imagine the average security agent earns less than 100, 150, depending on the agency, 1,000 naira for salary. Now you have the average counselor. The counselor earns more than that. That has CUSAT. So a police officer with a first degree earns far less than a counselor with a CUSAT degree. So we need to be able to draw a. Sorry.
Lots of great points for me. I want to allow you to just keep on going on. You are hitting a lot of points there for me, but I just gotta let.
Okay, so we need to be able to see how we can balance our remuneration system. The way we are today, the current remuneration system is very poor. Those in the National Assembly can't be earning the much they're earning and not doing that much as expected. And those with the arms are earning far less, and they all go to the same market. If you go to PTDF, those in PTDF earns much more than those in DPRO. Such anomalies need to be addressed. So we need to have a balanced, welfare and salary system that can help the country to function effectively, so that those who work will know what they are working for and put their lives at stake to do the things they need to do. Then on subsidy,
we got left.
Yes. Can I just land on subsidy? Just brief on subsidy briefly, please. On subsidy, I think one of the first things we need to look at is not to completely take off the pacifier from the baby's mouth, is to be able to find an alternative route, which means that we need to do a phased withdrawal, while at the same time empower, see that those who are doing bunkering are transferred into setting up modular refineries on one hand, revamping the existing one, setting up new ones. Then so we're doing all of this at the same time, right? We'll be able to now take care of the subsidy issue, not an immediate unplugging, but at least a phaser thing can help. While at the same time, you also improve on your transport system. So if we have good transportation system in place, a lot of people who have cars on the road, we have their cars parked, like we're seeing in advanced countries. You see, that will help the society at large. Thank you for now. And allow us to be able to continue.
That was a lot and well-intentioned and well-researched. I appreciate that, sir. Let me just also add these 2 points, just to reset the room again. We're talking Peter Obi at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, his economic plans. The idea is to hear what he said, extract policy, and let the people talk about it. Peter Obi made 2 last points on diversification, which I'm going to talk about briefly. He focused on agriculture and trade. For agriculture, he spoke about the land in Nigeria wasting. The real physical assets of Nigeria is the land, the vast, uncultivated land in the north. He said that land needs to be cultivated and invested in. He talked about a state like Niger State having no business talking about dragging statutory allocation when it has all that land that they can use to feed Nigeria and export. He was specific. When you handle insecurity, you can put people back to the farms and invest on the productive assets of your country. So that's his plan to diversify. Go back to the uncultivated land and basically make those lands higher yield export assets, right? He's also talking about the ports. And he said, listen, I'm a trader. I know how trade works. And I assure you that the trade, importation, and export will be seamless. He's going to drive exports. He has made a comparison with 30 countries, and he knows exactly what to do. He says the issue is only leadership. So we're talking ports, we're talking diversification back to the untapped land in Nigeria, agriculture. We are talking debt. He says we are borrowing too much. We're talking refineries. He said he will fix refineries, pay in naira, ensure that they work, take away the corruption in subsidy, and of course, power. He wants to bring renewables into the power mix, privatize the whole value chain, and make it all work under leadership. That's just the reset, guys. Let me get Ify. I've got what's the name? Ify Lena's guardian angel. You've got the floor, sir. Go ahead. Thank you, Prince K. Ify Lena's, you've got the floor going once. Let's go to Uncle Bob. Uncle Bobby Bob. How are you doing? Go ahead.
Thank you for this opportunity to talk. Sorry, can you hear?
I can hear you very well. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Uncle Bob, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I want to say there was something you said before which I liked. Peter Obi, once he gets there, if he gets there, which I believe he will, his work would be very, very difficult. I do not envy the position he has right now. He has a lot of work to do. Now, I'm not here to talk as an economist or a technocrat or anything. I just want to talk as a layman, as a very common person. I want to actually ask some questions. The first question I want to ask is about the refining of crude oil. Why is it so difficult for Nigeria to refine crude oil if we have people in the creeks in the Niger Delta that I've watched the videos online and on the TV where they are arrested bunkering oil and all that, and you can see that they make this thing in shanties. And information I got was that even the in our filling stations, most of the oil we use in the southeast here is gotten from those illegal oil bunkeries. I don't know how to
Yeah,
define it.
yeah,
So my question is,
I have a question. I think it's just corruption, sir. I mean, during the Civil War, the guys that were refining crude oil, the bunker guys refined crude oil in Nigeria. Nigerian crude
yes,
is low sulfur.
my point is crude oil is actually so easy. It's not something that you need to even
I
go to school to do.
voice ask some
You,
questions.
you don't even need to go to school to go to refine crude oil. So my question is, if crude oil can be so easily refined, to cut down costs, if you want to do subsidies, if you want to save cost on subsidy, why not transfer crude oil directly to the refineries at no cost, such that all since Nigeria already owns the oil, we just transfer the oil to the refineries directly, and the only thing that we are paying for now is the cost of refining. I don't know if you get what I mean.
Yes, but the refineries don't work. The four refineries in Nigeria do not work. So the only one that is working right now is in Niger Delta. It refines diesel. There's one coming up in Imo, and there's the Dangote massive one. So the plan is the Dangote massive one has more capacity than the four Nigerian refineries. So that one will soon be up. I believe by next year should be working. That's the situation we have ourselves.
Yes, I'm aware that refineries don't work, but I'm asking, is this the plan? Because if this is not the plan, the cost of petrol will still be very high unless the government plans to refine for free. If the government makes doesn't sell the crude oil and it's refined immediately, it's refined without
Yeah, but
adding any cost.
question you're asking,
It,
the refineries don't work. So what are you asking? I'm not sure. I'm not really sure where you're going with this.
I'm asking if when this refinery is coming to place, I was first of all saying we could get a refinery. Refining is not so difficult. We could start up refineries and then refine quickly
Okay, so
through
let me
without adding cost.
so the refineries don't work, and you can't get them working quickly. It needs a lot of work to get those ones that are bad to be repaired. The easiest, fastest route is through the Dangote refinery right now. That's the fastest route to get to a refinery that can produce enough PMS for Nigeria. So let me go to Chidube Honor. How you doing, sir? Go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Carlo. Good evening.
Good evening. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So I listened to PO during the session at the SCCI.
What was your
Um,
impression? Tell us.
yeah, for me, I think he made quite a lot of sense, especially like talking about the power sector, because like what is actually happening right now. I think even if you have read the papers, you will see that the TCN, which is still controlled by the government, is owing the Gencos a whole lot of money, running into trillions.
Mm,
Because at the end, like the power sector is still being subsidized. So the tariff which the TCN buy power is literally not the market price.
mm,
And then the problem now is this deficit runs into like trillions. And of course, this was also the problem that Egypt had at some point, because I remember like Siemens also supported them on how they could set up a better tariff-based system that is more market-driven. But the bottom point is like there should be first of all an overhaul, because even here in Germany, like they are literally like the big four TSOs, the transmission system operators, who are responsible for like managing transmission infrastructure. So when you have a system like this, then it kind of opens up because it's now more like a market. So it's more market driven and not necessarily like government just putting in money and running into the risk of stranded assets.
Mm.
And on the other hand, like the concept of renewable energy is really something that, of course, like when we are talking about the European Bank, it's actually since the ratification of the Paris Agreement, and it actually kicked in, became more stringent immediately. They adopted the net zero target. So, and even it will interest you to know, like during the COP26 in Glasgow, even the Chinese Exim Bank have committed to that, to net zero, and the implication of that is that they are also not going to be funding fossil fuel projects anymore. So, that on one side really, I see it more like a challenge, but I think like with the latest development on with the Russian situation and all of that, there can always be some ways around it, which for me I was also not so comfortable when Nigeria signed the net zero, like yeah, made the net zero commitment, because this commitment on a global level also has implication on the kind of assistance you get from these developing countries. But I would say like overall, we have really a good chance with renewable, but of course, like first of all, the power infrastructure needs to be fully liberalized, and then on a policy level, like a couple of developed nations have adopted like things like feed-in tariffs. This was really one of the things that pushed renewable quite a lot in Germany. That if you set up a renewable plant of certain capacity, you can sell that power at a fixed price for 20 years. So this really was like a lock-in. So it gave a lot of confidence to a lot of people to invest in that sector, knowing that at the end of the day, like within the 20-year period, for sure, like now big solar PV plants, some of them break even at 4 years and more. So at the end, like the first thing is open up the sector, both transmission and even distribution. Like I really don't feel so comfortable
Let
that
me ask you a question.
like
What about the pricing of power? Does that have to go up to really change the dynamics? I mean, if it does, is the tariff right now, are they appropriate, or do we have to take it a lot higher?
so for sure, this tariff right now is not the market price because it's being subsidized. Unless the claim by the government that they have removed subsidy is true, which I don't know. Because if that is actually true, then I still don't understand why like they are having this problem with the Gencos, because
Yeah,
the Gencos are saying we can't operate anymore because there is so much debt
yeah.
from the government. So, but like at the end, like overall, the power sector is just one part of the entire economy, and that is where like
Most
once we,
important part, isn't it? The most important part, right?
yeah, it's a very critical part at the end. So,
And
and but
okay,
what I was trying to say is also interconnected with a lot of things, because when there is productivity,
mm.
then the ability to pay also increases, and people could afford the market tariff because it creates the necessary value in the system.
So let me ask you a question. When we hear all this power, the power grid has failed, is it generation, transmission? What is the problem? If you had the magic wand, where will you go to first?
Well, of course, I think the biggest challenge is always in the transmission.
Mm.
Because like on the technical side, you have to maintain stability of the system, which managing certain parameters like frequency, like voltage, and also like your protection systems. So I think that is also one part we are like right now. I understand Siemens is supporting Nigeria through the PPI, the Presidential Power Initiative project.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the key, okay, so there are a couple of KPIs which the government are also looking at. One is they found out that there is a huge power theft from the big energy consumers. So most of the guys who buy energy in bulk actually uh like literally, like the same thing happening in the oil sector. So and then the first part was minimize this theft. Of course, there are really smart meters that can help to do this. And then the second part was on the transmission aspect. So most of our substations are completely outdated. So like you you hear about grid failure all the time. It's simply just that because there could be over or under voltage, under frequency or voltage, and when you don't really have like the necessary, they are called facts, flexible AC transmission systems that are able to like react in real time to manage this and send necessary set points to your generators, because generators are always somehow at the tail end. So if your system is failing, there first of all it tries to restore the frequency. If it's not working, then there could be things like load shedding, like removing some non-critical loads. And
So,
if that also is no longer working, then
how is it?
the
Yeah,
generator cannot be out of synchronism. In that case, your grid fails.
are you hearing me? Sorry, I'm so sorry to interrupt. So is the issue right now? Is the transmission? Is that the issue in Nigeria right now? Why we have all these system failures? Is that the issue?
Yes, that's the big issue. So because once you hear about grid failure, it's always with the TCN.
Gotcha.
So it's the transmission system.
And Jay, we had a lady here, Jay. She was saying that our solution was to more or less liberalize it, so to allow to give that station to the states and the regions if possible, so that they could then more or less own it in quote, and then monetize it so they can take control of it. What do you think about that?
Mm, really giving it to the states. So like, let me tell you like some models which have been adopted like somewhere else. For instance, in Germany, you have what we call Stadtwerk. So Stadtwerk are like, but it's more on a city level, not really on a state level. But these are not really transmission TSOs. These are more like utilities who operate on a distribution level. So I would say like, first of all, like liberalizing it means there is no one single national grid. Of course, there will still be that long distance transmission lines, because what happens is there is not uniform availability of resources for power generation. And then what that means is for certain regions, you may still need to transport power over certain distances. But what is most more important is like it has to be a market driven process,
Market driven.
and that at the end of the day, like people really because was like, even if you go to the TCN right now, they still like don't run it from a business perspective, which was also the problem that South Africa was having with their ESCOM. So because ESCOM was also government, completely government owned. But first, they saw like it was a huge challenge. ESCOM could not build new assets. And then they opened up GENCOs, the generation aspect, introduced IPPs. So IPPs now came in, started building their own plant. And even as at that, ESCOM were also struggling because they were burdened with debt. And the government now decided that, okay, we need to unbundle ESCOM. And unbundling it now gave the private sector the chance to come and invest in this infrastructure, and at the end, like make their money back from a unified energy tariff, doing a comprehensive policy on a national level.
So when Peter B says he wants Genco, Transcos, and distribution to be properly aligned and to clear certainty of policy and regulation environment, this is what he's talking about. This aligning and fine-tuning all those three elements. That would.
Yeah, exactly. Because a typical situation, you know what happened to Baton Naji with the geometric power. So this is a typical situation of policy disalignment. Because, on one side, like, you get a green light and then you go and bring in investors. And then after building a particular power plant or investing in certain infrastructure, then all of a sudden there is like a policy somersault, because this is not really, that is, so first it has to do with how uniform is your energy market. So who are the operators, who are the regulators, and at the end, like how in adhering to established policy guiding the power sector. So I think, like, because I was like going through the NEC regulations, they have some of these things written down, but the policy implementation sometimes also, you know how it is in
I'm just
Nigeria, like.
my time on this because power is so like Jay, you are saying that the power cost is fixed, controlled, and unattractive. That's why we don't have power investors interest. I'm just trying to figure out. I want us to really
Can
put our.
I say, Carlo?
Please go ahead.
Okay, so Chidube, you touched a lot of things. What you don't understand is that the power is not subsidized; it's fixed. So it's unattractive for anybody to go into it. Power is important, and you tell me I can only sell for 200 naira per kilowatt hour, and my production cost is 350 or 400 production cost. I haven't even talked about getting my cost, not to talk of my profit. Nobody goes into it. And this is what the government is doing. In their bid to say we are saving Nigeria from spending money, we fix the power cost and thereby making it impossible for investors to come in. And this is the big issue with our power sector. And then the policy are not aligned. One sector, the generation sector policies and the transmission sector policies are not aligned. And this is where you're also correct. That disalignment is making the two sectors unable to work. And when I talked about liberalizing the transmission lines, everything is handled by NEC in Abuja. NEC is too far away from the southeast. NEC is too far away from the southwest. NEC doesn't have the boots on ground to know what is happening or which areas. So, for example, some areas in Lagos are beginning to build. There are no transmission lines there. So you can see that development doesn't go there. But if the transmission lines are controlled by a much closer body that has a boots on ground, that understand exactly where a region is growing into. So, for example, in other countries, when a municipal area is being developed, for example, they can project the number of houses there, they project the number of meters in there, and they project the number of people that will live there. Then they allow development to move in that direction, equivalent to the resources and the transmission network required in that area. So you can't just start fixing transmission lines in area where people are not needed. So these are why transmission lines has to be managed much closer home than NEC. NEC is too far away. With the federal government, policies are made too far away that the states are not involved in it. Our states have no clue how to. This is why a region will apply for transformer and get it after 3 years. This shouldn't be happening if it was managed state-wise. These are the things that PCOB needs to look at. Right. So if we stay state-wise, we could also make it much closer by saying regional wise. We really should have TCN, this region, TCN, that region, TCN, that region. Investors are dealing with people much closer to the area where these resources are needed. And then when you talk about investor coming into the transmission lines are very expensive. It's not something that one investor can manage. Even a country cannot even manage their transmission line system. So by allowing subsectors of it, it's easier for each investor to be attracted by the area that needs it the most. So it's the same thing even with the generation. Do you know who generate this power, this captive power, but they can't even distribute to a certain area because there are people there cannot afford to pay for it. Then they move that power to different areas that can afford it. So this is why power should be much closer home. Of course, the policies at the top will guide that the price is not excessive, but you cannot fix price for a producer or a transmission line company, and then they are not able to make their money back. And these are the reason why the sector is not growing. Nigeria is controlling everything. At some point, they need to let it go and then either use investments to reduce the price or allow the investor to source his price, get it and sell to the people who need it the most.
And
So
let
this
me
Okay, let me can I come in here, please?
sure, but let me just quote what Peter B is saying, because he says government does not need to be entirely involved. So this is kind of he's saying government does not need to be entirely involved. Please come in, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. I know that in power sector there's so many reforms starting from the time of Obasanjo to this very moment, and Nigeria is not serious with power, getting the power. Because if we're serious with getting the power, the Jonathan Power Roadmap privatization policy, which Sambo chaired, we should have gotten everything right by now. But you know, everything in Nigeria is give me this, you chop this, it's all shredded in business. But if Peter Obi is coming in, number one thing he has to do away with is do away with power sector subsidy, do away with the forest subsidy, do away with petroleum subsidy. And for him to get the power right, I'm supporting the lady, what she said, the transmission is very important. He has to break up the transmission. Like some places like the West, you know that they need a lot of power. And some places like Eastern, West, South corridor, there's a lot of power consumption there. We need to have at least minimum 4 transmission company in this zone. The least place you have less power consumption, I believe, is up north, especially northeast zone. You don't really need to stress yourself much there. You concentrate yourself in those places you have more higher productivity so that you can get to your maximum efficiency and maximum productivity and maximum profit in the power effective for people that is coming in. But when you unified everything into one bundle company and say that, okay, shift the power, then we can move transmit to other places. It is not looking attractive. It's not even effective. And mind you, the lady said those GENCOs generating power in the local communities, they cannot even distribute their power, then they can move it to other places that pay more. No, it doesn't work like that. The policy of the government says that move the power to the next grid. Who is paying? Because the power price is fixed by government. That's why I said it has to be do away with. The power price in New Jersey can never be the same power price per unit in New York. New York pays more than New Jersey. The same thing goes to every state in America here. So there is no way people living in Onitsha, for example, you know that they have a lot of factories in Onitsha. They will pay more because they need the power more than the people in Ekiti State. Do you understand what I'm saying? So in this situation, you have to give for other players to come in. The same thing happens with the oil sector. We have an what is it called in escravos, gas to liquid refinery there, gas to liquid. Man, everybody is focusing on petroleum, forgetting that gas. You can convert your gas to get your gasoline, get your everything in gas. Qatar, they don't have crude, but they have gas. But they can convert all these gases, excess gas. You can get diesel, you can get aviation fuel from it. But we focus everything on crude. The same thing happening to power. The same thing happening to our monetary policy. The same thing happening with our competition and commercial policy in Nigeria. Everything is shredded in business. There is no clear-cut policy for anything in Nigeria. If Peter Obi has to come in, he has to come in with a team that understand the lyrics, a team that have the knowledge, a team that expertise, a team that is a field players in the industry. This is how he can make it. If he comes in alone and continue with the same style of governance, he's still gonna fail because the same result will still come up. But I'm thank God that he have this guy coming with him. What is it called? The party told me.
I believe by the time they rally around people in the industry, rally around people in the banking sector, rally around people in the manufacturing, rally around the people in the insurance, they will are very easy to solve. But the individual.
Let me get Chidubem, come right in. So what do you have to say? I think there's a lot of feedback on you. Abbas, that was powerful from Abares. Thank you so much. Just wanted Chidubem to have a word in. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, yeah. So, like just with what Joy said, I think it's just because we are using different terms because the whole point is that the cost of power, like in generation, there's what we call LCOE, which is levelized cost of electricity. LCOE determines like the amount you get, like what is the cost per kilowatt hour at the generation point. This is even before like it gets into the substation, talk more of going to the transmission line.
Yeah.
So if you say the cost is fixed, then it is fixed below the LCOE, the market price, paying for the excess, which is the subsidy we're talking about. So, like at the end of the day, um, it is more like really a policy issue and a market issue. So it's a market issue because, like I already mentioned, which I also agree with her, we
Yeah.
need to unbundle the transmission sector.
I mean,
But I personally do not really agree that like states should take charge of
what about
their transmission.
regional grids? Will that be okay? Because she's making a good point that I mean, Lagos itself is a region. Lagos State itself is a region. What about regional? Will that work?
Yeah, regionally, yes, it could work on a regional basis.
Okay.
Like,
I mean, we're getting some traction. I mean, you guys should just hang on there. I mean, great, you guys, Jay, Abba, just hang in there. And let me get Monsieur. I am Eno. How are you doing? Go ahead.
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I think more of my contribution will be on the fuel subsidy side of things. I'm not really a subject matter expert of the electricity things side. So someone previously asked the question. He said, "Why are the Greek guys able to refine fuel, and it's an issue for us as the national bodies to do that?" And I'll simply say the answer is just simply corruption, because I did petroleum engineering, and I would say in a layman terms, to refine oil, all you need to do is just to cook up the crude oil at a certain temperature. You get gas. You increase the temperature, you get jet fuel. You increase the temperature further, you get petrol, then you get kerosene, and what remains is the asphalt and waxes and all that. It's not rocket science to refine. So if you see the Greek guys, all they do is just to put the crude oil in drums and then set it on fire and then tap it at different intervals. So that's it. But I would say the main issue with it is that the NNPC, I would say the NNPC has the duty to run these refineries. They still have the duty to issue permits to import oil, and they still have the duty to oversee, to regulate the sector. So it's like a system that thrives on corruption, because people will be there to get kickbacks, people will be there with vested interest, and for sure the refineries will not work, because and then the government is still paying the subsidies. Somebody needs to still import and get those subsidies. If the refineries work, nobody's going to import and there'll be no subsidies. So it's not a good system. When this government came into power, they actually canceled all the licenses, and I was kind of like, okay, this is a good point, the import licenses, and then they gave NNPC the license to be the sole importers. And what we saw is that NNPC still had to share out these licenses to the same old players, and they even brought in new players. So instead of them trying to reduce the corruption, they reduced the players, or let me not say corruption, they replaced the players to also gain from this system. So I heard the argument of people saying, should we remove it or should we keep it? I would say no matter the end, what anyone says at the end, you need to remove it from a certain level. You need to take it down to the pump level, or you take that subsidy and find a way. I think what Peter Obi's government should actually be doing is they should try to think of how they can implement this subsidy directly to the people. Do you want to give credit or something? You find a way to.
I think that they should pay the subsidy at the pumps. Use your NIN phone with your BVN and register your phone to your car. You drive Nigerian fuel pump. You use e-Naira that has been paid to your NIN phone, and you use e-Naira and you pay the shop attendants.
Actually, that's part of my notes. I think that was like one of my suggestions. Like you can actually leverage on the e-Naira. You can leverage on the e-Naira. What that does is that it kind of like it reduces the numbers. What we have now is people smuggling the fuel to other countries. It kind of like makes the market stabilize. You kind of know your consumption, you know the numbers, then you still have the time to kind of work on your refineries. These guys don't really have.
If you don't want subsidy, you don't register your car. You pay normal price. So
yes, we have the same thought process, I would say, because I wrote them all down. Like. So that would and then you have a quota for each person. You cannot buy more than say 100 liters a day, or no, that's a lot. 100 liters a month. If you want to exceed that quota, you pay in full.
If you're a transport guy, you can buy more. Register your car as a transporter, then you can buy more. If you are Uber, you can buy more. It's easy to implement. It's not a hard thing to do.
And then these guys just made the e-Naira and then they just left it. These are things that you can do to promote the adaptation of these systems and bring in transparencies. You just need to think it. Once you think it, you can implement it and it works. And what we have there is that the marketers, those that buy from those that import, would buy it at market value. And then before you know it, the market forces will come into play, the prices will normalize, the number of imports will reduce, the prices will stabilize, and then you can now do a full removal when everything has come. And I tweeted way back when we started
I let others in, right? I appreciate your comment. Let me let
okay, thank you.
Akam's name. How you doing, sir? I don't know if I'm getting the right name right. Akam Kanais. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I want to talk on the electricity. Yeah, my other brother used to be the GM of NEPA, so I know so much about it. For more than 30 years, he was in charge of Eastern region. Then came into Lagos. He headed the Ikeja zone. So the problem, if you see that, if we normally talk these days, the privatization program was a very, very big mistake by the government. When NEPA was under government, it was better handled. It was better handled. Right now, somebody said
really, nobody's going to agree with you. I don't agree with you.
I can tell you that 100%. I know. That's because I'm just giving. I'm coming. Like somebody just said, if you have a 40 transformer, it will take you ages, more than 6 months for it to be replaced. When it was under this, and I have this the figures on me. When it was under government, unless you don't really go to complain, then when my brother was there, what he did is that he made it that you could, once there's a problem, you could make a call. You can call the customer care. He provided that you can go to Ikeja. He was the one that transformed the Ikeja and the Eko zone. In fact, he was the last CEO before they sold it before they sold it 2014. And so they were not giving them they were not really giving them any budget and at least was maybe 500 billion or there. But if you see how much they rake in for government every month, if you know how much they rake, but what happened is that government was not funding NEPA very well then. They just give them some little money during the budgeting, and then leave them to now go and source. But if you now see what is happening, government give this a kind of, or what they give this privatized company now, they give them, should I say they subsidize for them, or they give them loans that they end up not paying back. the amount of money they have invested back in the current PSC and the current discos now has exceeded how much they sold it. So the whole exercise was is just in shambles, and it's just they know what they did. They just wanted to tell it to themselves and start managing and eating what was coming out of it. When it was, if you know the downsizing that they've done in NEPA now, if NEPA used to have 100 staffs, right now they have been reduced to 50. Do you know what they succeeded in doing now? They succeeded in laying off. Then when you go to a branch where you're supposed to have 20 persons, now you're going to get only 12 persons at that place. They have downsized a lot, and they don't have qualified personnel any longer. They don't.
I mean,
they don't.
Again, we're in the public space, so I have my views. You have your views. I think the privatization has done well. I agree with you on the fact that the privatization hasn't done, but the privatized guys have brought capital to the industry. They brought a lot of capital in. Look at Egbin, look at Transamadi. They've gotten turbines, new investments. It didn't happen during.
I know. I'm really referring to the discos.
The discos, okay.
Yeah, my reference is just purely to the discos, not the gencos and the transmission You know what happened is the discos are the major people because discos are supposed to be paying to the gencos. What discos pay to the gencos? What they consume every month. But you know, when it was under government, you know, the genco right now, it just the transmission is still under government. The transmission line is still under government. They have not. The government has not privatized or sold it to anybody. And so, but to a large extent, some part of the gencos have been sold. Like if you go to Shirero now and there, but I think government is still in charge of that. Then maybe one or two other people that are just coming in to generate, and now what you have is that some of these distribution companies, they don't even some of these discos, they don't pay.
Just to be clear, we're not talking about power per se, but we're talking about power in line with Peter Obi's issues.
Yeah, So I think for me, what Peter Obi needs to do is bring in experts. Understand? Bring in those good experts, the brains, before coming into office. Yeah, assemble them. I know he went to Egypt. What worked for number one is that we have a lot of corruption in Nigeria, and they will do every single thing possible to make it not work. And now we know that, like when you come to the discos, government still have some I think that's 50% or 30% stake in some of in discos and thereabouts. I think it was not fully sold. I think they still have some percentage on it. And so assemble these best brains. Because of the corruption in Nigeria, we know that things that are in government does not really work. If you assemble them and thereabout, I think we can, when things are properly done, as somebody like yesterday, someone was telling me about meter. Somebody was telling me about yesterday. Every house should be metered. It's a must. Every house should be metered. P2B should make it a priority that every house should be metered. Once every house is metered, you don't have some changing, because the problem is that this cost, at the end of the day, most of them don't even meet up that what they collect from the transition companies. They don't, and then make sure that like Aso Rock pays for whatever they consume. Or
let me get Habibi. Mansour UG, how are you doing, sir? Mansour UG, go ahead and mute, sir. We're gonna wind it down. We got about to go. Just gonna get has requested to speak, and I'll just do a wind down, guys. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Hi everyone. So I'm just going to speak in support of the fact that we need to liberalize the sector and to try to make transmission as local as possible. Then one thing we need to eliminate is corruption, because when we talk about privatization of power, even the privatization that we had in 2014 was clouded by a lot of corruption. Now I'll speak on it because I'm very conversant with what happened, especially in the Southeast. Now, there was a very serious tussle between a company called Interstate, owned by Emeka Ofo, who is a very prominent billionaire and was basically friends with the PDP government at the time. Now, there was someone else named Bafnaji, and Bafnaji had proper experience. I think he has this company either in Canada or in the US that was involved in electricity big time. And Bafnaji was better positioned to acquire the distribution company for the Southeast. But they frustrated him and he eventually sold it to the other guy who basically knew nothing about electricity. We thank God that his company has been able to survive and it's now known as the Enugu Electricity Distribution Company, EEDC. And I believe they are doing okay, even though I heard that it is actually, their units are actually more expensive. Electricity is actually more expensive than than it is in other states. I don't know how true that is, but people in the East complain that Enugu electricity is actually more expensive. But I believe that if someone like Bafnaji was the one that acquired that, he would have done that. However it may be, I just feel that they need to make sure that these processes are as transparent as possible. If they are as transparent as possible, then we'd have investors, proper investors that just want to come in, do their thing, and make their money to do these things. Kalu was speaking about the NIN thing, linking it to your phone or your car for subsidy and all of that, and it makes a lot of sense. But I don't know how applicable that is because we are so corrupt. If you tell people, okay, as a commercial vehicle, you're entitled to 100 liters. As a private vehicle, you're entitled to 50 liters. Everybody's vehicle becomes commercial
Well, you have
somehow.
you tag it to your car registration, and if you're commercial, you have to have a commercial registration. You have to pay the registration. I mean, it's possible.
Definitely.
Yeah, but I hear you. I hear you, Bibi. I mean, great insight on that power system in Nugu and all that. I hear you. Let me get Christoph. We're going to shut. Everyone's going to speak now is going to speak, and I'm going to just shut the spaces down, and then we'll just take it from there. Thank you so much, Habibi.
Thanks,
Christoph,
Kalu.
you're very welcome. Christophani, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. Good evening.
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Oh, great. So, mine is not to really say so much because this is not somewhere I'm very familiar with. I'm more inclined towards microbiology and all of that. But I just want to ask a few questions. The government, the Buhari government, before it came in, said they were going to generate 20,000 megawatts of electricity. So I want to find out. I'm not trying to maybe criticize the government or whatever, but I want to know what has been the major challenge, because I know people have talked about the issue of generation and distribution, and people say, oh, the major problem is that we cannot channel our distribution appropriately. Now, I live in the north. I live in the north, and actually I live in the northwest at the moment, and we have major power issues. Sometimes when you have maybe electricity failure, it can take 2 weeks. I remember one time, just a few months ago, we spent about a month before we could get transformer because our power, they said one of the snake cable or whatever they call it was stolen and all of that stuff. It took a long time. Now that's aside, but I want to find out what was it. Was it that we don't have the capacity to generate 20,000 megawatts of electricity? Was the Buhari government just talking grandeur just so that they can get people to vote, or something along the line made it impossible? And because if we can tackle that, is it also possible for Peter Obi in 4 years, in reality, to generate that level amount of electricity and also distribute it? That's my question.
What I've heard here from
Okay,
Jay, from Chidubem. Hold on. What I've heard. Okay, Abras, go ahead. I think you're in a better.
okay. Let me chip in something for him.
Go ahead.
The major challenge Buhari government is facing in power sector is number one is the gas infrastructure. Nigeria does not have infrastructure on gas. The only infrastructure Nigeria have on gas is the Western Corridor. Nigeria produce gas in the south and part of southeast, move the entire gas to Western Nigeria. Nigeria does not have gas infrastructure. Recently, I think last year or thereabout, there was a AKK gas network pipeline that was given out, and they're doing the construction now.
This is Abuja Kaduna Kanu corridor gas pipeline, which will connect Benue, Kogi, and rest of them, terminate in Kaduna. Southeast does not have gas infrastructure. The only gas infrastructure you have is Western Nigeria, mostly predominantly Lagos. Even Osun State, Kwara does not have gas infrastructure. Up north does not have gas infrastructure. Northwest, Sokoto and Yaraba does not have gas infrastructure. There is no way you will have a power plant, for example, in Sokoto. How will you move gas? You have excess gas in South in Port Harcourt or in Imo State. How will you move the gas to Sokoto and get power for them? It's impossible. Number two, the policy of the government. Nigeria does not have unified policy. This government comes in, change everything, another government come, turn this upside down. We don't have policy. If we can have a unified, professional, well-articulated policy, everybody knows that this is the direction of the government. Every investor that comes in have a space for him. And not when the government comes in, another government comes in, they change the whole thing again. It messes up the whole thing. Investor lack confidence in the economy. It tightens up the capital flow into the sector. Another thing is politics. Oh, I want this to be my party. There's no nationalism. There's affirmation of political party. I want it to be my party. I want it to be. There's nothing like a Nigerian project. I want it to be a Nigerian project. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now,
Yes,
PDP want it to be their own. Okay, we are spearheading this. This is our flagship project. APC will come in. Oh, we are spearheading this. I want it to be our flagship project. Okay, keep it as a propaganda. Start rolling it on the media so that people will believe it. But all is lies. There is no clear-cut ambition. There's no clear-cut pursuit. This thing scares investor. When an investor sees all these things, they don't come in. There's a capital all over the world. Every corner of the world, there's this capital flowing. But you can make your country attractive so that you can pool all this excess capital to a particular project. Another problem Buhari is having is the budgetary allocation to the power sector is poor. Budgetary allocation to the power sector is poor. Mind you, Nigeria does not have developed power sector. We don't even have emerging power sector. We have underdeveloped, fifth world country power sector. A country like Nigeria, 200 million people, and about 450 billion economy. We have this type of power sector. Okay, there is over 18,000 megawatts of electricity. When you calculate the power plants, okay, just take, for example, Niger Delta Power Holding Company. Just take that, for example. All the whole power plants in Niger Delta Holding Power Company, how much megawatts do you think they have? They have excess more than about 12, 13,000 megawatts. How do you move the power? You can distribute it. Most of them, all these gencos operate at 40%. Most of them don't even put up all their turbines. Because if you put up all your turbines, where are you going to distribute the power? You don't have the infrastructure to distribute the power. That's why most of them are Gerenku, any of that, most of them are operating 20%, 25, 40%.
Interesting.
Okay, another thing is
on a bit. So just move on. So I mean, you've gotten more than enough reasons why power hasn't gotten to the north. I mean, he has just given you step by step. I want
to chip in the final reason.
Go ahead.
Why the power sector is still the way it is man no man. I want the cabinet minister or the minister at large or minister in charge or special envoy or whatever to be my brother. Do you understand what I'm saying? You leave expertise, you leave professional in the line, you leave handmade experienced persons on the street, then you bring your brother. You want your brother to be this. How can your brother give us light? Your brother doesn't even know anything about electricity or power or even gas. So this is the problem we have. If we can regulate, relegate all these things, Nigeria in 3, 4, 5 years, we have power. These things is not rocket science. It's a human factor. If we remove it, we have power immediately. Nigeria is a very blessed country, but these people is bringing everything down. Do you understand what I'm saying?
All right.
And that is the final.
Let's move on. I mean, Christoph, I mean, you've more than enough reasons, right? So thank you so
Yes,
much for hanging on.
yes, amazing, amazing reasons.
Let me get.
Thank you very much.
I'm just walking through the line, guys. Everyone's going to speak. So let me get Ben. Is that Benji? Benja? What's it? Is that Benja? Bendunu?
Yeah, Benjamin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Benjamin. Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much for this space, Carlo. I mean, it's an awesome space and discussion so far. I've tried to listen, although network has been quite ineffective here at a point. So I come in and I leave. But what Peter B's speech for me looked like is more of what he's do. Having stayed back in Nigeria in the past 5, 6, 7 years, especially in Port Harcourt, I think I will want to go this way to say that we need a kind of integrated approach to this. One, we need a short-term plan, and then we need a long-term plan. For the short-term plan, the issue about illegal refineries or bunkering in the Niger Delta is something we all need to start having a conversation about. Like, why not have them in clusters and then empower them? They pay taxes, we get revenue, they create employment instead of calling them illegal refineries. That way, we're solving two major problems. We're reducing the issues of environment on Niger Delta, and then we're reducing the issues of oil bunkering. And of course, we're creating jobs for young people in that sector. And then government is getting taxes and revenue from these guys. Same thing is happening in Malaysia. Small clusters, 5,000 refinery, 3,000, 1,000 refineries. And then in the long term, I want to suggest that we need to start looking at cooperative advantage of each geopolitical zone. For instance, the Southeast, where I come from, we can start thinking of having coal power plants. Forget all these gimmicks of the West about sustainability and all that. I mean, with what's happening in Russia and Ukraine, big countries in the West are beginning to think of going back to oil, going back to coal, going back to nuclear even. You know, the whole pressure on solar discussion, climate change is getting quite low tone here. So we need to... Hello?
Move on so I can get other things.
Okay. I'll just pause here then.
Thank you so much. Let me get Kingsley on your Kingsley, you've got the floor. On mute and go ahead, sir.
Everybody.
Do you want...
Go for
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Very well. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Carlo Aja and the rest of the team. I have a few submissions to make. Actually, I don't have a lot of things to say, but we are talking about a fuel subsidy and the rest of them. We know that fuel subsidy, dealing with it is a gradual process, and it is possible when we have the right people in place. But many times when I hear people discuss subsidies and the rest of them and the crude, we are only focusing on crude, and at the end of the day, what everybody will be talking about is fuel. Then what about the other byproducts? Because one of the speaker there, I couldn't picture his name. He talked about the refining processes.
I want us to Kingsley, we're talking about the campaign, what Peter B has said, how we can link it in, right? So I wanted to sort of take the conversation there.
That's the same area I'm driving to, probably. We are, okay, let me not diversify on that area if that is digressing out of the point. Okay, let me talk on the area of power sector. Like host there talked about that gas infrastructure, piping gas from the far south down to let's say for example northeast is a quite turbulent thing for government So my question is it possible, because Mr. P2B has gone to Egypt and he has actually studied the energy sector, and he went there with the technical know-how and how he can actually implement all those things? East, where we have a lot of desert areas, is it possible that we can actually explore the use of turbines to generate power from that side, while we focus on some area where the gas infrastructure can actually circulate to? Because when you come to the northeast, for example, some of all those areas like Bornu, when you come to northwest, like Zafara and the rest of them, is complete desert. And when you implement or explore turbine generating power, I think that will actually go a long way to help that area, for example. So it's just like a question: can he explore? If he has not actually put that in place, is it possible that such can be implemented?
I got
Thank
you.
you.
I hear you. So let's move on to I've got Sarah Weber. Sarah Weber, did I get that name right? Sarah Weber. Sarah Weber, you got going once, going
Okay.
twice.
Hi. Good evening.
How you doing, sir? Go for it.
Very fine, thank you. Thank you for having me on this, to come up to speak. I'm very happy that this space is coming up. I'm happy with the topics, with the, line of conversation, and, for paucity of time, I just want to quickly go into three, major topics, and I'll start with, the fuel subsidy, question, and how I'll be approached it especially. I think, as many of us already know, the entire fuel subsidy regime is one of Nigeria's biggest, corruptions, if you want to look at it that way. And the reason why it's like that is because the fuel subsidy regime is a reflection of the Nigerian state. So when people talk about, how is there so much graft in this system? How is it that the same set of people keep on taking, all the profit out of here, and it's the average Nigerian who is bearing the brunt of all this? That's exactly what Nigeria was meant to be. So it's just fulfilling, the purpose that the template it was built on is meant to fulfill. But that being said, I think there are a few things that we're losing sight of. First is that already Nigeria has a plan to not pay any subsidy from, I think, July. So the
July.
budget for next year, yes, that's
Yeah.
July next year. So the budget for next year has an almost automatic cutoff for subsidy payments in June.
No, but
And if Peter Obi wins,
no,
sorry?
hold on. Are you sure about that? Because the budget, they gave two scenarios. They gave a month-to-month budget and they gave a June budget. So they actually did a budget for 6.7 for the whole 12 months. They gave those two
Yes.
scenarios. Yeah.
Now, what they've done is that they've said that the subsidy payment for the entire 12-month process is supposed to be that 6 point something trillion. And then they've said that they are only going to put in the budget about 3 point something trillion for those 6 months. And it's the same thing with many other. There are some debt repayments that Nigeria has to start making from June 2023, which just so happens to be when the government is leaving, and the next government is going to have to come in and deal with that entire mess. But at first I thought it was a problem, but it's not so much of a problem, because if Peter Obi wins, hopefully, if he wins and then he gets into office May 29, 2023, so he's starting, let's as well June 1st. You have what will basically be the largest goodwill that any Nigerian president or any Nigerian presidency has come into office with, right? Coupled with an extremely terrible economic situation that Nigerians have gone through for the last 7 years, and in fact for the last 3 years, specifically. What that President Peter Obi hopefully is the opportunity to end the subsidy regime once and for all. We missed it in 2012, and the good thing with the 2012 experience, even though we missed, taking subsidy out, is that there is a workable template developed by some of the brightest Nigeria has ever seen for subsidy removal, right? And then a gradual stepping down of the effects on the Nigerian people. That model had contributions from the current DG of the WTO, from some of the most cerebral minds that Nigeria really has. It is there. It is a federal government template designed to end the subsidy regime and its entire corruption, but slowly work Nigerians into the new reality of a post-subsidy era. So there's no need to reinvent the wheel. There's no need to set up a committee. There's no need to get creative or waste time. You have that template. Start working with that. If it's something that down the line you have to tweak a few things. You can always do that, but you have a template that someone like Professor Pato told me, as a contributor to that template, he understands what ending the subsidy regime can mean in terms of savings for the federal government. And that takes me into the second point. Sorry?
Let's start rounding up if you don't mind. Do you mind?
Okay. So I'll just quickly focus, just give thoughts on the power sector reform. I think that Peter Obi is definitely on the right track in the sense that the three broad processes or the three broad stages in the power process, generation, transmission, distribution, they all have to be privatized. Now, what the federal government is meant to do, which I believe that's what he's looking at, is what? One, set broad templates that are going to govern the power sector. So now, whether you have transmission at regional levels or it has to follow a particular template, and it's not equality of pricing. Equality of pricing cannot happen in any free market economy system. You're just going to create more problems down the line. But what you have is that, okay, if your pricing is going to be, let's say, 600 basis above the cost of generating and distributing that electricity, then let it be that. So that if in Lagos it costs you 500 and then in Kano it costs you 200, you know the bounds within which you can set your pricing. You don't have exploitation of market users. So set those boundaries. The second is that a very important period that a President Peter Obi hopefully will be entering into office as president is now, where Nigeria made that mistake. I believe it's a mistake of going to sign that net zero agreement. But the beauty of the last few months is that everybody now realizes that when push to shove, you can roll back on some of your net zero agreements because of necessity. So you have the UK who is looking. You have the UK.
That is.
You have the UK.
Not Nigeria.
No, well, I understand that, but you have the UK that's going back into basically saying, okay, necessity has forced us to go back into fracking. You have other countries who are firing up coal plants, who are rolling back on their, avoidance of nuclear power. So what it presents as an opportunity for a country like Nigeria is the opportunity to say, basically, look, the net zero agreement has some goals, and it aims to roll back on some of the effects of global warming. We are not the greatest contributors to global warming, and we have serious power crisis that you can also understand, where we're coming from with this agreement. And it's not something that's so absurd. When Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo went to the United States just before a few weeks ago, that was the same line of reasoning that he took, and that's the same.
Let me get Okwa. Law Comelo. I have olisa, and we're just going to shut it down.
Yeah, good evening, Carl. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir.
Okay, so I wanted to just point out a few points. The first one is that I believe Peter Obi has the will which has been lacking in past leaders to tackle corruption, and that's what is actually even more important than any policy documents, because in the past, a lot of policy documents have been generated, but that will to be able to follow through hasn't been there. And that's why I believe it would make great change than all the past leaders we've had. Then secondly, with regards to fuel subsidy removal, data gathering is the first step that we really need to focus on, because we do not know how much we are actually even importing in the first place before we start even talking about how much is being stolen. So we need to first of all get that first so that we can quantify what we are actually spending on subsidy. Now, lastly, I don't think subsidy is a complete scam. When people scam, sometimes people say if you remove subsidy, they say it with the belief that the price may not move too far. But the truth is that the global price of PMS currently is actually around $1. So what it means is if you remove the subsidy completely, we are going to be buying fuel at roughly 700 naira at the pump. And I can assure you that there's no amount of social reform that we'll be able to do fast enough to tackle the effect it will have. So for me personally, I would suggest a staged removal of the subsidy. For example, the pump price can increase by 100 naira every year. So, and by doing that in like 4 years' time, we should have gotten to the pump price that is at market value. But if we take off the price at once and pay seminar tomorrow, I can assure you that there will be more chaos than whatever social reforms we are going to roll out will be able to handle.
I think
And
very
then
quickly,
secondly,
very quickly, he's saying that 60% subsidy. So if he tackles the is dropping the without even touching the people, tackle the 60%, take the cost down.
Okay.
yes, but what I have also noticed in the past is that most presidential aspirants will always say those things because they do not yet have the complete data. When he has the complete data in front of him, it may not be as simple as that. That's one. And then secondly, there's also this notion that we have that once you remove subsidy, there's going to be funds available for this and that. But what we forget is that the subsidy is being provided from debt. It's not being provided from cash. So, and if you are looking at the economy as a whole, removing subsidy actually reduces our debt. It doesn't necessarily mean that we now have more cash available to do whatever. So if we are looking at the economy as a whole and we are trying to cut down our debt, we should actually be.
Hello, sir. Could you explain what you mean by subsidy from debt, not cash? Could you explain that, sir? Sorry. Could you unmute and explain what you mean by subsidy from debt? I'm not sure if I got that clearly. Hello. All right, let me get Olisa. Olisa, the last person to speak. Olisa, Anthony, then we're going to run it up. Olisa, go ahead, sir. Olisa going once, Olisa going twice. All right, guys, let me.
Right. Yes, thanks for having me.
Hi, Olisa, how you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
Good. I was opportune to be with His Excellency in Los Angeles, and having listened to him, I know he has the willpower and the capacity to see Nigeria out of this world. My whole suggestion to him, keep on straight, that I would love him to actually use the right people at the right place. The one they said, let him put the square peg on the square hole. By so doing, Nigeria will get it right. And I wish him success in this election. Thank you.
Okay. Let me chip in something here, Carlo, for what the last guy said before we round off.
Yeah.
Okay. They have been talking about this petroleum subsidy and the power subsidy, and I did a study the last time, and I came up with what I coined as Bureau of Reinvestment Fund of Nigeria. If government can remove the fuel subsidy, remove the petroleum subsidy, and as well remove all these waiver they are giving all these big men in Nigeria and custom and exercise to the department, then we can put this fund as a structured fund. It can be as in of a interventionist fund for 5 different areas, which I've seen globally Nigerians are doing properly well. Number 1 in the sports, number 1 in the education, number 2, number 3 in the health sector, number 4 in technology, and the 5 the creative industry. If government can remove these funds, tie it up in a structured fund, which will involve not only the government.
About to go to round up. Round up.
Okay, but the labor also will be involved. Every other players in the industries will be involved. They will help it to tackle the issue we are having in education massively. Issue we are having in the the health sector, the sports, everything will be tackled because all this fund goes into the right place where it is properly needed, and it will be managed by multi-layer industry players. And that's it.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. All right, guys. So we've come to at least we could have stayed there for more hours, but guys, we'll let people go home and maybe rest. Let me close by just saying, Mr. Peter B was asked, "What will you do in your first 100 days?" And I'm quoting here: "Our human capital is low. The more you invest in education, the better our economy. We will invest in education, health, and start pulling people out of poverty. These are our orders of priority of what we will do. So Toby says, even though he's a business guy, he wants to do power, subsidies, and all that. His 100-day focus is on education, health, and pulling people out of poverty. I agree with him. I think, like I said, once he enters office, he has a week, not even a month, he has a week to show positive change. People are going to literally wait to see physical, verifiable, positive change. It might not be fair on him, but he is coming in as quote unquote the change agent. Many people tried change 8 years or 7 years ago and they were disappointed. I think this is maybe their last chance now to say, let's give this one more try. If this doesn't work out, I don't know where democracy goes to. Perhaps everybody goes back to where we were before 1999, where no one cared about democracy. So we've got to get it right in 2023. We've got to be deliberate. And I tell people all the time, this election is all about the economy, nothing else. If you fix the economy, you fix security. All that banditry you see, if the economy was working, you will fix the banditry, the terrorism, the corruption. Everything is hinges on the economy. If a policeman can earn 200,000 naira a month, then he takes less bribes. Then he can do his job. But you can't pay a policeman 200,000 a month if the economy cannot generate taxes to pay. People are honest, but their kids are starving. So they take a bribe so their kids will not starve. We've got to fix the economy. Hence, we must elect someone that understands the economy. It's all about the economy, guys. Be deliberate. My job is to give us information. I'm not going to endorse anyone on the basis of just a presentation that was done. At the very end, we will see what has happened and then maybe make an endorsement. But guys, you have your ears. In Africa, we listen, we hear the proverbs. We've got to go and count our mouth, our teeth with our own tongue. You've got to ask yourself, who will help your family become middle class? That's the question for you. Which presidential aspirant today will take your family from where it is to become middle class? Whoever that is, go vote for that person. Don't vote because it's from your tribe or from your religion. Inflation does not select based on tribe or religion. We are all going to pay 712 naira to a dollar today. We are all buying bread for more than 1,000 today. Pure water is more than 20 naira today. We can't even pump oil because the pipelines are being broken. We can't even pay our debt. We can't even service the debt from the revenues. These are the issues. You cannot drive from Kaduna to Abuja and sleep in peace. You can't drive from Lagos to Ibadan at night and sleep. This cannot be the largest economy in Africa with these problems of pure drinking water. We can't have that, right? So let's make a change. Let us do our part to be deliberate and elect a president. Then let's hold that president accountable. That's the least we can do. Guys, thank you so much for listening on this spaces. As we get, if the next one we're going to wait for is the Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He's to come. I think it was postponed. If he comes on to the LCCI, we will also do the same spaces for him as well. We won't do proxy. We want the presidential candidate to come himself and talk so that we can hold him accountable. No proxy. Thank you so much, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. My name is Kalu Aja. I'll see you guys next time, and bye.